actually patterned my look after what they called the town tramp in my hometown when I was a little girl. This woman that used to walk the streets had all this makeup and hair, high heel shoes, and I thought she was so beautiful. And everybody used to say, oh, she ain't nothing but trash. And I used to say, well, that's what I'm gonna be when I grow up, trash.
Bimbo, noun, an attractive but unintelligent or frivolous young woman. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Victoria Rose. I am a 24-year-old woman of transgender experience. This is my third time trying to film this video because my microphone keeps dying, and partially because of that, I consider myself bimbofied. What is bimbofication and who is a bimbo? Well, I'm going to get into all of that in today's video. For decades, women have been struggling with the term bimbo. Most of our association with the term bimbo is as a derogatory word towards women used by men, but initially the word was created in the 20th century in Italy to just mean a small child or a baby. And then later in 1919, the term was brought to the United States and used to mean a small or brutish young man. Obviously the term has evolved because today we do associate the term bimbo with a sort of self-obsessed, narcissistic, airheaded, sexual, promiscuous woman. In this video, I will be examining the evolution of the term bimbo, where we are today, and the growing numbers of self-identified bimbos on the internet. I cannot wait to dive into this video essay, but before I do, I have a word from our lovely sponsors, Catch Beauty. Hi, if you've been following me for a while, then you would know that permanent hair removal and permanent hair reduction has been a huge roadblock in my transition. I don't know about you guys, but at least for me as a transgender woman, my hair removal regimen has always gone so above and beyond that of the average person. I have spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours in salons getting professional laser hair removal and electrolysis on my face and my bikini, and I was just thinking to myself, like, if I continued going to these salons for the rest of my life, for my arms, for my chest, for my belly, for my legs, for everything, I would never stop. And it's true, you would never stop. So that is when I did some research and I found the Catch Beauty at-home IPL laser hair removal device. Catch Beauty's IPL laser hair removal device is my top rated way to get salon quality results at a fraction of the price in the comfort of your own home. I've been using their device for several years on my legs, on my arms, and I'm just recently moving to my underarms. I used to have like pretty thick arm hair and it's gone. The ones that are here are very light and blonde hairs, which wouldn't have been picked up by laser anyway. Catch Beauty wants to help us through even the hairiest parts of our transition. So whether you are a trans girl, not trans, a man, a woman, somewhere in between, if you are interested in having permanent hair removal and permanent hair reduction, then please check out the link in my description box below to check out the Catch Beauty at-home IPL laser hair removal device, and make sure that you use the code ROSE for money off your order. Thank you so much to Catch Beauty for sponsoring this portion of today's video, and without any further ado, let's grab hands and dive headfirst into the world of the bimbo. When somebody thinks of a bimbo, the first thing that often pops into our minds is a blonde, white, large-breasted, and most importantly, empty-headed sexual woman. The image the media paints of the bimbo is very much that of the stereotypical dumb blonde mean girl look. Funny enough, in the 1920s, the word bimbo was actually used in a song, and it literally just meant woman, and it took off from there. The term bimbo had a resurgence in the 1980s and the 1990s alongside shows like Baywatch and The Rise of the Playboy Bunny. And of course, we cannot forget the allegations of sexual misconduct against Bill Clinton and countless other politicians. When these allegations came to light, the media only focused on the women. It wasn't like Bill who people were mad at. It was either Monica or Hillary. You were team Hillary, you were team Monica. They were mad at Monica for being this overly sexual bimbo, like pretty girl, and they were mad at Hillary for being the shrew wife who allowed her husband to stray. Either way, these women's sexualities were used against them, and you were either damned if you did or damned if you didn't. As a result, the media's obsession with these floozies that the politicians were running around with, 1987 was actually deemed the year of the bimbo. The largely negative attention established many women in their career who may have otherwise lived a relatively unexamined life, or as unexamined of a life as any woman can lead. There are countless women who have been pigeonholed into the sort of bimbo stereotype. and often this is despite many efforts to be taken seriously in the entertainment industry for something other than just sex appeal. Most famously, of course, is Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn knew that she had sex appeal. She was known for her blonde hair, her curvy body, her voluptuous bosom, and her very sexual and sensual voice.
That's good. Dorothy's the best and loyalest friend a girl ever had.
She is a complete icon, and she knew that she had some sex appeal. In fact, early in her career, she actually did a private nude photo shoot for just $50. While this remained a secret, Marilyn grew to immense success in the entertainment industry, as we all know, especially with the release of her movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes in 1953. Unfortunately for her, this was also the same year that founder of Playboy, Hugh Hefner, decided to purchase Marilyn Monroe's nude photographs for a mere $500, and without her consent, he published her in the centerfold of the first ever issue of Playboy. I talk about the dark side of Playboy a little bit in this video. I will have a whole other video about that, but it might seem hypocritical because I have like a Playboy cup that I'm drinking out of. I don't know if you can see it here. I have like a Playboy belly ring and like earrings, but there are ups and downs to the whole industry. I think Playboy did a lot for the sexual revolution, and that's going to be a whole other video coming soon. But there are a lot of really shady things involved as well, so I don't mean to seem hypocritical, but like we'll get into all of that another time. The release of the photo shoot did actually end up boosting her career, but it left her tainted in the eyes of the public. She was seen as this sort of sex kitten, as this ditzy sex object who was only interested in pleasing men, when in reality, Marilyn herself was actually kind of uncomfortable with sex, as she had a troubled childhood and an overactive mind. Unsurprisingly, unfortunately, amidst all of the fame and infamy, Marilyn did develop a substance abuse problem, which eventually led to her demise. In 1962, Marilyn died of an overdose speculated to be a suicide at the age of 36. I can't help but wonder, were Marilyn's issues with substance abuse and mental illness exacerbated by the label of the bimbo? Another example of bimbos in the media is Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson, who was deemed in the 90s as the modern-day Marilyn Monroe, is an actress and model native to Canada. Like Marilyn, she is blonde, busty, and known for her bombshell look. Pamela was first featured in Playboy in 1989 and then officially became a Playmate in 1990, and she remains to this day as the most featured model in Playboy. Her name is synonymous with the brand. She worked with management for years to be established as a serious actress and model. She wanted to be like Jane Fonda, as is mentioned in the Pam and Tommy series on Hulu. Hype bitch in charge, getting the roles that she wanted, being in charge of her sexuality, bulldozing any obstacle in her way. Pamela was and continues to be an activist against animal cruelty, against the AIDS epidemic, and against online pornography. Unfortunately, an obstacle did appear in her way to reclaiming her own sexuality. In 1996, an old sex tape of Pamela Anderson and her then husband, Tommy Lee, was stolen and released to the public against their will. While Pamela did recover from this, her image was tainted, and her chances at being taken seriously in a pre-2020 world were essentially gone. On the coattails of this era of the bimbo was Anna Nicole Smith. Anna Nicole was an American model, actress, and personality who began a modest rise to fame through Playboy. She was first featured on the cover of the March 1992 issue and became Playmate of the Year in 1993. Although we can all say that we remember Anna Nicole for Playboy and her TV appearances, she is perhaps most known for her second marriage to 89-year-old billionaire J. Howard Marshall. The two met at a strip club Anna Nicole used to dance at back in 1991, where he would offer her many lavish, expensive gifts, and he proposed to her several times until she finally said yes, and the two tied the knot in June of 1994. This marriage was on the cover of every single magazine, every news headline, every TMZ article, everything. Everybody knew about this marriage. The media loved to hate her. She was accused of only marrying him for his money, which she denied, but like, come on. Anna Nicole was and is an icon. Her sexuality got her what she wanted: money and attention.
Freaking genius!
Her ditzy, bubbly attitude is contagious, and while most of America hated her and called her a gold-digging bimbo, she established a cult following of young women like myself who just loved her. But unfortunately, like Marilyn, and Nicole had her own issues with substance abuse, no doubt made worse by being nitpicked by the media and being made the butt of every joke for nearly a decade. The icon died in 2008 of an accidental overdose, but her impact on society will never be forgotten. All of the women that I've mentioned this far have been made famous or infamous through various sex scandals, but this one coming up was not involved in any sex scandal. She was just labeled a bimbo simply for her big blonde hair, her excessive makeup, her long nails. You guessed it, I am talking about our Lord and Savior, Dolly Parton. I have loved Dolly Parton for as long as I can remember. I remember when I first saw her on TV, I saw her crazy outfits and her sweet personality and her long nails, and like, she was so fun. I was just completely infatuated with her, and I still am to this day. Dolly's place in the bimbo community is a really interesting one because while she attracts all of the sexual attention, she doesn't deem herself to be a sexual person per se, and when you hear her speak, you're drawn in by her intelligence and her kind-heartedness.
I am sure of myself as a person. I'm sure of my talent. And to me, and I'm sure of my love and for life and that sort of thing, I'm very content. I like the kind of person that I am. So I can afford to piddle around and diddle around with makeups and clothes and stuff because I am secure with myself.
Paving the way for bimbos everywhere, Dolly Parton leaned into the beauty that is femininity. She used her femininity, her hyper-femininity, and her sexuality to get her to where she is today. She would draw them in with the sort of over-the-top look that she liked, and they would stay because they would realize that she was actually a multifaceted person. She wasn't just some blonde bimbo. She actually had a lot to say, as all these other women also had a lot to say, but no one listened. Dolly herself says that she patterned her look after what people used to call the town tramp, with too much makeup and too much hair, to which she nods to in her 2008 album Backwoods Barbie. Just like all previously mentioned women, Dolly Parton did pose for Playboy. Dolly was the cover of the October 1979 issue, donning the iconic bunny costume with her own Dolly spin on it. When she drew the audience in with her dazzling look, they stayed for the soul. Dolly Parton is wildly intelligent, she's wildly talented, and she's a philanthropist. And that is why to this day, she remains one of the most iconic people in music history, period. Not just the most iconic woman, not just the most iconic bimbo. Dolly Parton is a legend in the music industry and a trailblazer for bimbos everywhere. I relate to Dolly because I too use my looks and my sexuality to draw in an audience. I think, you know, you see on my Instagram I post a lot of thirst traps, or like on my thumbnails or whatever I might show some more cleavage, but that gets people to click on my videos and then they hear what I have to say, and hopefully y'all keep coming back for what I have to say. I gotta say, it's kind of working. Now that we've covered a light history of the term bimbo, as well as bimbos in media throughout time, it's time to examine what the modern bimbo is and how the term has been reclaimed, and the rise of female empowerment through the ashes of misogyny. Circa 2017, the term bimbo and bimbofication came back into the public lexicon, and it became sort of a movement for people to embrace femininity and hyper-femininity, to encourage women to dress however they want, be it a pink miniskirt and a tube top, or a gray pantsuit, encouraging both the Monica Lewinskys and the Hillarys of the world. The idea of bimbofication entered the chat, and the movement totally blew up. Images like this were circulating everywhere. I remember it especially on Tumblr. This is actually a fetish art. When you search the term bimbofication on Urban Dictionary, the first definition you're greeted with is the process of transforming into an airheaded slut, perfectly happy to be used and degraded. This definition is referring more so to bimbofication as a kink, which is totally valid and definitely like has a lot of roots in modern bimboism, but it's not how all bimbos relate to bimbofication. So the second definition they give is actually a little bit closer, which is the act of feminizing oneself while participating in a typically male-dominated field. It is often done in a grandiose and overtly feminine way to add stark contrast to the typically male things. Think Elle Woods in Harvard Law.
I feel comfortable using legal jargon in everyday life. I object.
And while I like this definition more, it does still feel like not quite where I want it to be, because not all bimbos are in a male-dominated field. However, everybody exists in a male-dominated society. We all live in a patriarchy, so it's adding the stark contrast of femininity to a world that so shames femininity. In a world that is so, I'm not like other girls, it's sort of saying, I am like other girls and that's okay. Like, we don't need to be ashamed to be feminine. We don't need to dog on other women for wearing makeup or not wearing makeup. In this society, behaving in a hyper-feminine way is seen as so ground-shaking and anti-establishment that it's called a movement. One of the many figureheads in this movement has been Alicia Amira. Alicia, a model and self-proclaimed activist, has been on multiple different talk shows, docuseries, and has publicized her bimbo lifestyle through social media. She embraces what it means to be a bimbo. She takes the idea of what being a bimbo is and just blows it up to the point of drag. On top of being an adult film star, Alicia is also a university graduate and she runs her own business. That being said, this wave of bimboism does not necessarily encompass what true modern bimboism is, as modern bimboism has a heavy emphasis on inclusion and diversity. In the spirit of division within the bimbo community, I want to talk about diversity in relation to this movement. I've revised the script a few times and I feel like I didn't talk enough about women of color and plus size women in the bimbo community. While my experience of the bimbo community has been nothing but accepting of all different shapes and sizes, colors, etc., that is not everybody's experience and not everybody feels welcome. The bimbo image is largely associated with Eurocentric beauty standards, not to mention the itty-bitty heroin chic look of the 90s and 2000s. While the movement is headed in the direction towards diversity and acceptance, as we saw from Alicia Amira's post, not everybody is on board with that. Some of my favorite bimbo TikTokers are either women of color, plus size, or both, including Faux Rich, Lavender Dolly, and Fiona, who I will mention later in this video. That being said, these creators do exist in the minority of the community, and I can imagine they might feel rejected by their peers. Bimboism requires a certain amount of privilege, and not necessarily pretty privilege, because I feel like that is more of a mindset. Like, I think you can be pretty without being conventionally attractive, but that's like a whole other discussion. I'm talking about socioeconomic privilege. You can 100% build your entire bimbo wardrobe by thrifting. In fact, that's what I do most of the time. I think we should all think secondhand first, but the lifestyle does still kind of promote lavish living. It promotes, you know, Juicy Couture or a Louis Vuitton Murakami bag or things like that. The carefree, blissful ignorance that typically accompanies the bimbo lifestyle is also something that comes from privilege. So I myself, I will say, I am a woman of transgender experience, and unfortunately 2021 is the deadliest year on record for women of transgender experience, particularly Black trans women. There is not a day that goes by that I forget that. No day goes by when I'm forgetting about the police brutality that's going on. Not a day goes by that I'm not thinking about my trans sisters. But for me, at least, bimboism is more of an escape, not something that encourages myself or anyone else to not pay attention. In fact, I would say it's quite the opposite. Bimboism, or at least modern bimboism, encourages a sort of social awareness, and she's an ally. She's got her nose in the news. She knows what's going on. For me, bimboism is more of an escape thing. Like, as much as I would love for life to just be Lisa Frank, rainbows and butterflies all day long, it's not. But the fact remains that the lifestyle is not accessible to everybody. When people think about bimbos, their idea is still of the mean girl, the bottle blonde, promoting whiteness, thinness, and modern beauty standards. Although modern bimboism is moving away from that, that is still the image that a lot of people get from it, and it does require a sort of privilege. Modern bimboism has completely took off on TikTok especially, and especially around Gen Z people. There is a huge spike in self-identified bimbos on the internet. This is perhaps best explained by one of the most iconic bimbos on TikTok, Chrissy Klepeka?
Who is a bimbo? What is a bimbo? These are multiple questions that I have been getting from millennials. Who is the Gen Z bimbo? A bimbo isn't dumb. I mean, she kind of is, but she isn't that dumb. She's actually a radical leftist who's pro-sex work, pro-Black Lives Matter, pro-LGBTQ, pro-choice, and will always be there for her girls, gays, and theys. If you're homophobic, I'll castrate you. Listen, this is an inclusive organization. There's bimbos, thembos, himbos. I don't do this for the misogynistic male gaze. I do it for my gays. And damn, my tits look good. It's about emotional intelligence at the end of the day. And remember, we always step on Trump supporters. Hey, is that a Trump supporter? Ew!
Radical leftist, pro-sex work, pro-BLM, pro-LGBT, pro-choice, and supporting girls, gays, and theys. While I don't want to trivialize leftist politics by assigning it to an aesthetic, I do think Chrissy has a point in saying that bimbos are inherently leftist, because I think a lot of our beliefs in being an ally and female empowerment and female sexuality is inherently leftist. I think generally people on the right would just kind of call us whores or sluts. In my experience, modern bimboism is sort of like a branch off of feminism, and feminism depends on intersectionality. We cannot succeed in feminism without lifting up people of color, without lifting up LGBT people, without just lifting up plus size people, without lifting up disabled people. Like, all people should be taken seriously no matter what they're wearing, no matter how provocatively or conservatively they dress. I actually love to think about it as like Emma Stone in Easy A. She was accused of like sleeping around with all these guys and stuff. None of it was true, but she was like, you know what, I'm going to use this to my advantage, and she leaned into it and it worked. Now, another thing to examine in bimbofication is the sort of like vapid empty-headedness, or at least the illusion of empty-headedness, that is sometimes put on display by some bimbos. Not all, but some. Those who do play into the stereotype are no better or worse than those who do not. But when you look up bimbofication on TikTok, you are most likely to be greeted by something like this.
Scientific studies show that higher intelligence is linked to higher rates of depression. So what we have to do is get rid of those thoughts. No thoughts, only thoughts. Video sponsored by Bimbos of America.
In my observation, I feel like the whole no thoughts head empty thing is sort of a commentary on what is going on in the world right now, because it's so awful and so bad that we're surrounded by negativity and bad news that it's sort of like, I don't even have any thoughts. Like, there's nothing. The ones that I would have are all bad, so there's no thoughts here. Plus, acting stupid can cause people to underestimate you. Like, people will be less likely to hide their snake ways. They don't think that you'll be able to tell that they're a bad person, but you're able to tell because they're not trying to hide it. One TikTok bimbo that talks about this is Fiona, aka GS Get Lonely Too.
In relationships and friendships, it's a lot easier to act stupid because people will try to cross the line with you, and they won't be so sneaky about it, and you'll be able to see people's true colors a lot faster.
Releasing oneself from the shackles of self-awareness. Looking hot and acting like an airhead can get you very far in life, and we've seen it for centuries, and it's only now that those women have a platform to share their tips. Many people criticize bimboism as sort of just appealing to the male gaze and just dressing up as a male fantasy. But I think at least the majority of bimbos are dressing for ourselves or for our girlfriends or our gay friends. There is a strong tie in bimbofication to the BDSM and kink community, which is like a whole other discussion, but even that isn't anti-feminist. I just think modern bimbos are more interested in looking like a sex doll, but not actually being a sex doll, and claiming autonomy over our own interests in our own bodies. Like Dolly Parton, many of us are aware of the privileges that we have from looking the way that we do, and we use that to our advantage to make real change in the world. In today's world, if you were to scroll past, or maybe not you, but if a cis straight man, the people that are in power, is scrolling through TikTok or something, and they see a nun talking about equal rights or about animals or about women or like whatever it is, they're more likely to just scroll past because they don't care. But if they scroll past a girl that looks like me, or like Christy Klopika or whatever, talking about something, they're more likely to stay because they like what they see, even for a couple seconds, and maybe they'll get hooked and kind of like buy what we're selling. Bimboism is not just an aesthetic, it's an entire lifestyle and sort of a set of beliefs. I am so thankful that I found it, as well as the diversity within it, as I found many trans friends, many plus size friends, many friends of color. Like, there's just so much diversity within the bimbo community that my experience of it has been nothing but good. But please let me know in the comments down below how you feel about bimboism and how you feel about it in relation to diversity and feminism. This is only the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other videos that are so good recorded about the same subject. I will link some of them in the description box down below. I have so much more that I could talk about, like analyzing bimbos throughout history or the influence of transgenderism on bimboism. So please make sure you leave any suggestions in the comments down below. I really appreciate you spending all your time with me. And until I see you next week, good luck. I love you.